Well, we're not going to get any better than that. So my final question for you, Whitney, is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
Oh, closer to a meatloaf than a sandwich. Yeah.
So is that a no?
It's, shades of the hot dog. Shades of meat tubes.
I'll take it.
Yeah, yeah. And
I'll
I
take
think
it.
I'm probably a yes. I mean, honestly, like I'm a small town Florida kid at heart, right? So hot dogs have always been in my life and they came in a bun. So ergo sandwich.
All right. There you go.
Yeah.
We have our answer.
And
My,
we will be hiring lawyers in the future. So keep an eye on that.
all right. All right. Very cool. With that, I'll ask you the question that is the reason why my listeners actually stick around, which is, Daniel, is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
I think a hot dog is not a sandwich because the bun's connected. And that negates the fact that there's a taco sandwich. Same thing. No, it's a taco.
If you rip the bun in half or break the taco shell in half, does it be now, ex post facto become a sandwich?
100% without question.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Logically consistent. That's what I like to see. The answer, Jim, is because most lawyers are not like you and I or the other guests on my podcast. That's why, because they could get away with that for other lawyers.
Yeah, but it's funny how lawyers will just, no offense to anyone else there that finds themselves into this, but, a lot of people will just say, okay, that's how much it's going to cost. Okay, let's do it. We need it. And you probably don't.
Right, right. So with all of that being said, Jim, my last question for you is a question I ask all my guests, which is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
It's a hot dog. Of course, yeah, of course it is. Yes, it's a sandwich.
Why?
Because it's food between two pieces of bun.
Okay. All right. You got it. So with that, we've run out of time, but I feel like we could keep talking for hours, Tom. So I'm definitely going to have you back in the future.
Great.
But for now, I have to round it out with the same question I ask all my guests, which is part of the reason why I feel like they stick to the end of the show. Is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
Well, it is because you've got bread on the top and the bottom and you've got something in between. But it never occurred to me that it wasn't a sandwich. It's just it's sui generis in a sense, but at the same time, it obviously is well within the definition of a sandwich as I would define it.
Second
And
time we've heard sui generis in response to this question.
well, that's interesting. Of course, then the question is a Big Mac a sandwich? And having worked at McDonald's before I went to law school, the last summer that I between my junior and senior years, I worked at McDonald's, and I can tell you that it is a sandwich because it's 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. So, by definition.
There you go. There you go. Okay, great. And they're on your website too. I see under what we offer tab. The last question mark I like to ask all my guests is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
Oh my God. I would have to say, yes, it is a sandwich because it has 2 pieces of bread around a hunk of what some people call meat. I don't eat hot dogs.
All right. Definitely a unique answer. What some people call meat. I like it. So again, Mark, thank you so much for coming on the podcast Law Subscribed.
Thanks, Matthew. It was a lot of fun.
And then if you haven't done that thing in the past, being able to go to vendors and be able to say, here are other motions that have won in front of my judge, or here are other merger agreements, and be able to use Sally tags to find those things, massive time savings.
Yeah. So the reason why I get all my listeners to stay through to the end of the episode is because they're curious to know how you're going to answer this question, Damien, and that is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
I've done hundreds of podcasts since the beginning of the pandemic. I've never been asked that question before. So with that, I do not have a pat answer. I would say that my well-reasoned answer that I'm happy to say I'm wrong about, but at least my answer as of this point is that it is indeed a sandwich because it is a piece of meat between 2 pieces of bread. But I'm happy to have my mind changed on that.
Compilation episode coming soon with everyone's answers. So then the listeners can decide who had the right one.
I was not allowed to do it because it was a weird technology that they weren't used to. And now it's so common. We need those things. And COVID helped us, I think, realize that we really need them.
Yeah, yeah. So with that, Erica, my final question for you is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
A hot dog is a sandwich because there are 2 pieces of bread, in theory, especially if you break the bottom of the bun, and there's stuff inside. Seems like a sandwich to me.
All right. Hands down right now, Paxton is my absolute favorite AI tool that I'm using. So again, super thrilled to have you on. I got to ask you the question I ask all my guests, which has nothing to do with what we just talked about, but it's an insight into how you think. And that is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
Oh my God. So we actually have a legal definition of what a sandwich is and so the answer is it depends based on geographies. So we have, and I'm not sure why you're asking this and whether you know this, but internally to Paxton, there is actually a legal answer on whether a hot dog is a sandwich or not. It does depend in which state. But I encourage all of your listeners to go on Paxton to select laws, rules, and regulations, to look at the state of New York and to ask, is a hot dog a sandwich? And the answer is undeniable. And I say in New York very clearly, the laws, rules, and regulations have stated the answer, and I will not give the answer on air, but I will tell you there's a clear answer that will settle the debate.
That might be the absolute best call to action that I've ever had on the podcast for sure. But if that didn't convince my listeners to go try out Paxton, it's paxton.ai. Really easy to go find. Where else can they find you or find Paxton?
Until we're at every corner of, I will not stop until we're at every corner of the hot dog food stands in New York City. So yeah, and we'll create a direct link to that you can share with your listeners on Paxton AI. Is a hot dog a sandwich, to make it easier for them to see, so this debate can finally be settled once and for all.
I absolutely love it. I mean, without question, right?
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with that, I mean, we're at time, so I feel like we could keep talking for hours. But I have to ask you the question I ask all my guests, Matthew, which is, of course, is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Now, so luckily I've researched this, and the answer is 42.
Did I get that right?
I think you technically did get that right. But for the sake of, I want to compare. I have an upcoming compilation episode of all the answers. I am curious to know, and of course, you're in a totally different country, so your answer, it's okay if it's out of left field. I am curious to know. What do you think? Hot dog, sandwich? Why? Why
It was
not?
way above my pay grade, so I asked the next thing to Google or ChatGPT, which is my kid, and she said, "No, it's a hot dog."
I love
Is that better?
Ask the kids. Ask the kids.
Yeah,
They have a lot less baggage with the way that they think.
correct. Yeah,
So
correct.
that's great. We'll take it. Answer accepted. Even Canva has started introducing AI right in their tool.
That's right.
Well, with that, Lael, my final question for you that I ask of all my guests is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
So this is a debate that I have with my children. Also, I can definitely argue either side of this, but for today's conversation, I'm going to say yes, it is a sandwich because it is filling, surrounded by bread. I think what makes a sandwich is its portability, as well as your ability to eat it without making a mess. That's not to say you couldn't make a mess eating a hot dog, but I'm of the opinion that a hot dog is a sandwich.
All right. That was a very well thought out answer. So I feel like, yes, you must be having these debates with your children.
Pre-engineered prompt engineering. I like that. I might use that actually if you let me.
For you could use it, but for what it's worth, if you go to legalpromptengineer.com, you're going to get me. Anyway, yeah, so I hopped on that domain really fast. Liam, the last question I have for you, why everyone sticks around to the end of the show, is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Is a hot dog a sandwich? I would say it is not a sandwich. No, it is a sandwich because you can have an open-faced sandwich. I'm not a huge hot dog person, although I was born in Chicago. I feel like I should be more into hot dogs than I am, but I would say, yeah, it's a sandwich because it's meat in between two pieces of bread, essentially, with a bun. So,
and if the bun is connected, you got an open-faced sandwich.
That's right, an open-faced sandwich, which I spoke without really thinking it through because I was like, wait a second, open-faced sandwich, exactly.
So now I have to ask a rare follow-up question that has been asked a few times before. Based on that logic, is pizza a sandwich?
Is pizza a sandwich? Well, I'd say no, just because this is going to be.
What
I
if you
mean,
slice? What if you slice up
say-
a hot dog or sausage and then put it
and
on
then
a
put
pizza?
it in and then
Is
roll
it,
it
is
together
it a
because
sandwich?
then it becomes a calzone, right? So it's just. I mean, I would have to. Yeah, my Italian is not great. So is
Is a calzone? Yeah, is a
a
calzone a
sandwich?
sandwich?
Is a calzone a sandwich? Oh man, I feel like it's a losing answer. Whatever I say, it's gonna upset some people. I'm gonna have to say no. A calzone is its own thing. Can I explain the logic behind it? 100% no. My
All right,
reasoning. No.
so hot dog,
A
a sandwich, maybe even an open-faced sandwich, pizza. That's where you draw the line.
That's
Okay.
I got to draw the line there. But you'll have to have me on again, and I'll have to think about it to really give you some of my reasoning.
Being with friends and family on a vacation on an island somewhere where you just get to experience and be with some of the greatest influencers, I think, in the space. And it's just a ton of fun.
Yeah, it's a great time. And with that, I've already asked you the question of is a hot dog a sandwich? And so I'm starting a new tradition with second-time guests, and that is a calzone a sandwich, and why?
It is absolutely not a sandwich. And I would say, having no authority in this space at all, it's because when I look at sandwiches, they have layers that are visual to the eye. You can see the layers. A calzone is kind of just a lump folded together, more like a piece of bread with stuff inside it. That's kind of how I would say. So yeah, firmly on the side of calzone is not a sandwich.
So glad to hear that you're not just hoping that you could break up
No.
a flat fee payment and
No.
make that a subscription. So let's see. Okay, so that's a lot of what I wanted to cover with you. I guess we are kind of at time. So let's do this. I'm just going to ask you the last question that I
Okay.
ask of all my guests, which
Yes.
is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
A hot dog is not a sandwich because I believe a sandwich needs two separate slices of bread.
Even if you tear the bun? What if you tear the bun?
No.
So the
You-
bread that you're using needed to have been intended to be used separately from each other.
Correct. And I have made hot dog sandwiches, but what I'll do is take two hot dogs, split them in half, flatten them onto a slice of bread, and then put another slice of bread on top. That's a hot dog sandwich.
Okay. You got it. That's what you remind, like, give yourself permission, reminded me of that sort of hypothetical.
Add
kind of thing.
constraints. Constraints breed creativity.
Lawyers are some of the smartest people I know. I say that a little self-servingly, but I feel like if we didn't have the option to bill our time, we'd figure out better solutions. And I'm so glad Fadoo is making it easy for lawyers to do that. So Kim, you've already answered this question, but don't worry, I have another one for you that you'll get to answer too. But first, Blaine, my audience needs to hear from you. Is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Oh, there's a whole chart on this. I think I went into this pretty deep once. I think the best explanation I found was a hot dog is technically a taco because it's three sides covered. There's a chart. How many sides are covered? So I'm going with taco.
A hot dog is not a sandwich, but it is a taco.
Yeah.
Which begs the question: is a taco?
I'm not
a
saying that in
sandwich?
Chicago. Oh, now I'm in trouble.
No, that's okay. It's okay. We love the Hispanic and Mexican community here. Big Hispanic population. Is a taco a sandwich then?
No,
So
because
is-
it's three sides. A sandwich is two sides covered.
Okay.
There's a
Got it.
chart.
Got it.
This is a chart.
Very,
Oh
very
my
interesting.
God. Also, this is like
It's a great question.
This is like an insight into some of our conversations.
Our team meetings get fun.
Yeah. So since we've already heard your answer, Kim, which may have changed over the last, I don't know, it was like almost 3 years ago, I feel like, that we had our interview. Is a calzone a sandwich, and why?
It's on the chart.
Based on this chart that I haven't seen, a calzone is covered on all sides. So I'm going to say a calzone is a pie. No,
Pizza pie.
a pizza pie. I don't know.
I can't remember if
Okay.
calzones are its own category.
Is
or-
calzone it's a patty? So my Caribbean heritage will say a calzone is closer to a patty because, like, cocoa bread, like beef patty, curry chicken patty. make inside. I'm going down this path of there's a chart that I want to now go see and search on one.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what a patty is.
Oh, like a beef patty, like a Caribbean beef patty, like it's
Is
all
there bread
covered
on-
like
is
a
there bread on one side of
No,
that, or
it's
is that-
covered the crust. It's covered with a soft pastry crust.
So like a puff pastry type thing.
Yeah, but kind of a no.
Okay.
But yeah, but a pastry and it's covered and it's closed in with the meat inside or whatever the contents inside. Empanada. Yeah, so like all the same ideas. So I would say like a calzone is in that. Is that what a calzone looks like? Am I making that? Yeah, right. I'm like,
It's a pizza fully enclosed by the crust.
right.
basically,
And
yeah.
so like it's like a sandwich fully like a crustable. Is a crustable a sandwich? I mean, it's
on the
kinda-
chart.
I would feel like I'm
PB,
gonna.
is it crustable a PB&J sandwich?
No.
I think it's a crustable, but I think it's like a patty. It's a peanut butter and jelly patty. It's what it is.
This is the second time I've ever asked this question because you're the second person who's been on the show twice, and crustables came up in that answer too.
There you go.
Lane,
That's good branding for crustable.
what's your answer for is a calzone a sandwich? It's apparently on the chart.
I'm
but
pretty
what is
sure.
it?
Well, it's on the chart for sure. And pretty sure it's either it either defines the category or it is grouped in with pierogies and patties. And
I eat
and
food.
the
I don't
like.
cook it or know food that well. So like, but I'm a foodie because I eat it.
There is a fully enclosed category.
Yeah, and that's what it would be. Those are the patties, the crustables.
Is it a fully enclosed sandwich category, subcategory of sandwich though? That's the
That's a
question.
great
Is
question.
it a
I
sandwich?
don't remember
So
if
no.
these
So-
are grouped under the sandwich. I don't think so.
I'm gonna say no. I'm just gonna go hard no.
There was
and
a
I could be wrong, and I can shift later. It's okay.
Like
there was
like
a
a genealogy
taxonomy
chart,
to this.
evolution chart is like, are we related to the whale? There's a common ancestor. It's the sandwich. Is that?
So I would say no, because if you think about this journey, there's the sandwich, there's the hot dog, and then there's the calzone. No.
Cousins?
Yes. Because they have the similar contents, just one is closed in, one's not. They have,
Yeah,
they have
different
contents around.
This is why this is the only reason I get people to stick to the end of the episode.
And I just think that ultimately these services are going to improve, which is going to make the lives of attorneys better, not only in giving the better services to their clients, but also in recapturing time to improve their own practice and, of course, to have a life outside of the law.
Well, Michael, I need to round out my side of the pod with a question I like to ask everyone
Sure.
who comes on the pod, as is tradition on Law Subscribed. And that is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
Is a hot dog a sandwich and why? Okay. The answer to that is no. A hot dog is a piece of meat. Whether you put it into a bun or a piece of bread, that's another story.
Woo-hoo. Now that's a first. Very good. But it begs the follow-up question of hot
Please?
dog in a bun. Is that a sandwich?
Well, I don't know how it is in Chicago, but being from a native of New York State, a hot dog in a bun is simply a hot dog, not necessarily a sandwich.
Why?
I don't know. Has anyone ever said, would you like a sandwich? Here's a hot dog?
Your reasoning is a question, but we'll
Mhm.
accept it.
Well, I think what we should do is the next time you and I record together, we need to get on ChatGPT and ask it, is a hot dog a sandwich, and provide all the various legal citations.
Funny you should say that.
Mhm.
Paxton actually wrote a blog post and used Paxton to answer this question, legally speaking.
Okay. And what did Paxton say?
You'll have to go to the blog post. I don't remember, but it depends on the jurisdiction. In New York, there's actual law on the books on what is,
Oh.
doesn't qualify for a hot dog for like tax and other regulatory purposes. So like and Texas has its own answer, and like there are that's a legal question in certain jurisdictions, and there is a legal answer to is a hot dog a sandwich, which is kind of blows my mind.
So, like, in order for a hot dog to be a hot dog in New York State, does it have to be in a swill of dirty water that you see from
Maybe,
the
maybe.
vendors? Not that I'm poo-pooing getting hot dogs from street vendors anywhere. I mean, I've had them myself, but no, I'm gonna have to look that up. Is a hot dog a sandwich? Boy, you know what that would be? That would be a great law school exam.
Right?
Is a hot dog a sandwich? And then you just write it on the board and walk out. You got 2 hours and let everyone else just freak out.
Coming to you soon by Professor Eisenberg himself.
Yes, because I'm just not even. Well, it's sort of like that philosophy class test where the professor walks into the classroom and he takes a chair, puts it on the table, and says,
prove the existence of this chair. And then everyone starts writing frantically, except this one guy who basically writes a sentence, turns it in, and walks out the door. And his answer was, what chair?
Chair. Yeah. Again, Michael DJ Eisenberg, tech savvy lawyer.
And the only other thing that I would caution people about, and it's a quote from a guy that used to be the U.S. Army Chief of Staff, guy named Eric Shinseki, and he said, if you dislike change, you're going to dislike irrelevance even more.
That's good. That's a great way to end the show. Although I do have one more question for you that I ask all my guests, which is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
Yes, it's a sandwich because it's between two pieces of bread.
All right. Well, Jeff Carr.
That's what GCAI and AI in general, but in particular GCAI was really great at.
All right.
So I'll stop sharing and we can kind
We'll
of
wrap
chat
it up.
more. But this
Yeah.
was so much fun, Matthew.
It was a pleasure to have you on, and no using GCAI for this question that I ask of all of my guests, which
Please.
is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
So I took an Airbnb experience class where this was the topic, right? Remember when Zoom first happened, when the pandemic first happened, we're all on Zoom. So a hot dog is not a sandwich because it has its own taxonomy. And we all know what a hot dog is, and therefore it's specifically excluded from sandwiches.
Sounds like a bunch of lawyers came to that conclusion.
That's a great one. Thanks so much. Have a good one.
You too. Wait.
Well, I just think it has, long term. It's brilliant. It's simple. It's so clean and clear. And man, yeah, I really appreciate you having me on the podcast today.
Yeah, the last question I got to ask you, Gabriel, is a question I ask all my guests, which is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
Definitely not a sandwich because man, that is such a weird question. You got to warn people. I'm gonna go with no. It's a stick of meat on a roll, and to me, that's not a sandwich.
Okay.
I love a good hot dog, but I don't think I can put it in the sandwich camp.
All right, so they've already heard the mid roll of the ads, but after that 7-day free trial ends and you want to subscribe for an annual subscription, save 10%. Use the code LAW subscribed.
Exactly.
And so with that, any final words before I ask you a question only a few of my guests have actually been asked before?
Oh, I'm excited for the question.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, you gave us a lot of stuff, so we'll just move on to it. So only my second time guests have actually gotten this question because you've already answered as a hot dog a sandwich. So now, Dorna, is a calzone a sandwich and why?
Honestly, I haven't had a calzone for so long. I feel like I was similarly embarrassed on your last podcast when you asked me the question about sandwiches. The calzone is like a pizza that's flipped on, like closed up, right?
Right.
That's a good question. I would say no, because there's no right answer, right? I would say no, because I think of a sandwich as being a bread that you then put stuff in and then close it up. Whereas a calzone sort of feels like the stuff was already stuck to it, right? And then you close it up. I don't know.
That's why it makes a good question.
You're going to need to do some analytics on this, on how people actually answer these questions, so I can see if I was right or wrong.
It's a personal answer. It's a personal answer. But the hot dog question turned out there's a legal answer to the question because in certain jurisdictions, like tax and other things about like what is and isn't taxable in certain ways, or there are hot dog vendors on the streets versus hot dog. So you'd be surprised there are actual legal answers to the question, which I never knew coming into it.
I actually remember that we had a case in law school where we talked about, and I forget what the result was, but bagel chips. Are they bread or are they chips? Because that put them in a different part of the supermarket. And I think maybe they were taxed differently too. So seems like food categories are a big legal topic.
Interesting. Banana chips. Are they fruit or are they chips?
Like it. Gotta get some answers. You need to do a blog post on this.
Yeah, it's all. You just ask a kid, ask a toddler who could speak with what they are, and they'll tell you without any of the extra BS that we have accumulated over the years.
That's true.
These are the types of places that we can go to improve our practices. So it's great to see another one come up. I'm in there already. Just started to click around because, like Sean said, just opened up. But definitely link to that in the show notes. check that out. Link to the book as well and to Sean's website. Other than that, Sean, is there oh, well, actually, before I ask that question, I have to ask you the question I ask all my guests, which is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
I listened to one of your earlier podcasts and I thought I am going to be prepared for this. And I'm going to tell you an answer that you haven't heard, and you can see why, because I put it in the colony, and it was the TED talk I mentioned.
Okay.
And a hot dog is a metaphor for change, and a hot dog will help you give great hospitality. And you'll be thinking, Sean, what are you going on about? And if you look at the Will Guidara secret ingredients of great hospitality, this is a New York restaurateur who actually gave his clients, his customers, a hot dog, and it was the highlight of their gastronomic tour of America. So there you go. And so there we go. My answer is, it is great hospitality. But if you're saying to me, what was the actual question? Is it a sandwich or is it not a sandwich? It's a sandwich. But if you're keeping the stats on it, it's a sandwich.
Why? Why do you ultimately? First of all, that is a very unique answer. A hot dog is hospitality. I love that. But you say it's a sandwich, and I'm curious still to know, why did you ultimately land on that?
Okay, because I think that I'll probably stand corrected by all your listeners. The sandwich was invented by the Earl of Sandwich in the UK, and it had something between two bits of bread. So your hot dog cut down the middle is two bits of bread either side of the sausage. So I think it's a sandwich. But I think we might have to look into the origination of the word sandwich to make sure that we're actually bang on the money there.
You are not my first guest from the UK, and they also quoted the Earl of Sandwich. So, and I think I'm gonna have to go back and look, because they might have even come down on the opposite side of the spectrum.
Oh, right. Well, we just need to get out more, clearly.
If it's not detached, right? I'm trying to remember what they said, but they might have said the same thing. We're compilation episode coming in the near future. So I'm putting all these answers together, and we're just gonna do one episode. I think I almost have enough to make it a whole episode length. So I might have to do a few bits of compilation episodes. But thank you so much for that, Sean. Thanks for coming on the show. So I think, and I'm not. It's a correlation, not causation, right? But I still think it's an interesting thing. So with that, I'll ask you my last question I like to ask all my guests, Brandon, and that is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Oh, so a hot dog is not a sandwich for two reasons. One, because if you put the bread on the top and the bottom of the hot dog, it just looks ridiculous. So that's a prerequisite to a sandwich, and that doesn't work out so well. The second one is, my son will not eat sandwiches, but he will eat hot dogs, and he tells me he doesn't eat sandwiches. So apparently in his, 5-year-old mind, there is a clear distinction between those two things, and who am I to judge if that's the distinction that he's drawn?
That more and more people are bringing up what their kids say, which is really something, because they're just like these early large language models, right? That are like figuring out language, right?
Exactly. They haven't overthought it.
Well, okay. So two rare follow-up questions to this. I accept your answer, but realizing you're not in Philly, but you're in Pennsylvania. Is a Philly cheesesteak a sandwich?
That is a sandwich.
Okay, even if it's on like a sub, like it's not like on like a two separate.
It can be on a sub, because that's its own special creature. So yes.
Okay, interesting. And then my kid, is a hamburger a sandwich?
Ooh, that one's tough.
Well, let me tell you, while you're thinking of that, my kid, who at the time she was only like 2.5, but we made burgers for everyone, and she wasn't eating burgers, she was eating mac and cheese or something, but. Like I was like finishing making, like bringing in stuff from the grill, and there was a burger sitting there for me, and my kid, who was like 2.5, she was an early talker. She's small. She's like tiny. She makes up for it. We could say she's small but mighty. She was like, "Daddy, you need to eat your sandwich," referring to the hamburger, right? She's older now, but at the time I was like, I never thought of a ham. I thought it was, sui generis, which is what I've heard about a hot dog before. Like it's a unique thing. It's its own thing. But yeah, I mean, I think a hamburger is more like a traditional sandwich than a hot dog is more like a traditional sandwich, right?
Yeah, I think on the gradient, it's definitely closer to a traditional sandwich. I'm trying to think of the other criteria that I would use,
And if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, maybe it's a sandwich.
I mean,
This might be how it is.
The kid rule, because I will tell you, there have been some parents on the show that say their kids say that a hot dog is a sandwich.
Oh.
And so, you never, it's all a matter of perspective. It's less about, what you answer than how you answer it. That's what I'm going to ask of my audience and my listeners, is to share this with those people. Because if we could change their minds, then I think we're going to see lawyers, be required or have at least the ability and the flexibility to adapt. But with that, Bill, I want to ask you the last. So we're going to find out where we could find you in a minute here. But first, the last question I ask all my guests is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
My 13-year-old daughters, I have twin 13-year-old daughters. They literally asked me this question last night.
So you're ready. You're ready.
I'm going to go with the lawyer answer. It depends. I mean,
of course. But if you had to choose,
I got to go with no, and I don't have a real good reason for it. It's I don't know. To me, it's something different. My daughter Abby, I think she had one of the better explanations. You don't eat a sandwich from the end, and you don't bite a hot dog from the middle. Like, okay, it's a process question for her, and I think I've always said Abby, I think, is going to be my engineer, and to me, that's a logical answer, right? I've never bit a sandwich from the middle, I've never bitten a sandwich from the end and eaten down the length of the thing, and you don't eat a hot dog from the middle. Like, you wouldn't hold it sideways and eat it from the middle out. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense to me. What a hot dog is, I don't know. We'll call it an alternative. We'll call it an alternative food arrangement.
Oh, I love it. 2 unique answers to that question today.
We want to hear from you. So however is convenient, or, whatever way to engage with us is of interest to you, we welcome that. And we hope to hear from you.
Yes. And our contact information is on the abovethelinenetwork.org project page.
Yes.
All right, there you go. So before I let you go, Jess, you've already answered this question, but Roya, you have not. Something of a tradition on the podcast, and that is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
I am the wrong person to ask this question. I'm going to share a little anecdote with you. I'm now a pescatarian, but that choice to stop eating meat followed shortly after I ate a hot dog off the side of a road right before I went skydiving. And so regardless of whether it's a sandwich or not, I think they should not be consumed.
I hope when you set up the side of the road, it was from like a cart and not like
It was
off the side of the road. Okay.
It was, it wasn't in the gravel.
Because that would explain why it didn't sit well with you.
Was that like a lawyery, like not answering the question answer?
Right. Yeah. So as a former hot dog eater, and you had such a bad experience that it pushed you to not eat meat anymore, or not eat that type of meat anymore. Is a hot dog a sandwich? And yes or no, and why?
I'm going to say no, but that's just a real gut instinct answer.
So just your gut tells you it's not a sandwich.
Yes, not a sandwich. I would love the breakdown of yes and no's and your podcast guests.
Compilation episode coming soon. And Roy, you're going to also get this question because you're here. But Jess, the question I've been asking of guests who have attended more than once is a calzone a sandwich, and why?
Oh, my gut instinct is to say it is not.
Why?
Why is it not? I guess when I think of a sandwich, and I don't know if this is the definition of a sandwich, I think of 2 pieces of bread of some sort and things in the middle. And I feel like a calzone, which I love calzones, actually, when I love sandwiches. I don't feel like that's the description of a calzone. But now I want one. I want one for home.
Interesting. Well, it's almost lunchtime, at least Central Time. Roya, where do you come down on that? Calzone, sandwich, not sandwich? Why?
I have the same definition in my head, Jess, that you just described, but I love a pita sandwich. And, that is more of the calzone-esque shape. And,
What is it?
I'm going to go with yes on that one.
What is a pita sandwich? It's just like a...
Yes, it's a sandwich. This is going to have to go offline. We're going to rumble about this one.
I'm just going to tell you that we have peak viewers. We have 15 right now, all about the sandwich thing. So I hope they all go back and watch the recording. So that
this is not the part we wanted them to take away.
Well, again, you two stick around, but we're going to go off live here in a second. Thank you so much for joining me on Law Subscribed Live.
There are lots of things to be done, and I'm looking forward to being able to really work in this area.
Yeah, yeah. Well, with that, we'll bring it to the reason I know everybody stays to the end of the episode, which is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
I knew this was coming because I've listened before. I would say yes, a hot dog is a sandwich because even if it's just one piece of bread, it's still kind of encased in the bread when you put it into the bun. So I'd say that's a sandwich because there's two sides to the bread, even if there aren't two pieces of bread.
All right. We'll accept it.
Okay.
Thank you for giving the explanation there too. A lot of people, they just say yes or no, and then I have to prod them for the explanation, but you gave it. That's good. Well thought out. And then with that, MatthewKurbis.com, like I said, is my speaker portfolio. The podcast, if you want to subscribe, the best place you could do that for me anyway, so I know who you are, is www.lawsubscribed.com. This year, I switched over to Substack as being the main place that I'm powering the podcast through, and you could watch all the videos through there. I'm starting to upload videos elsewhere, but if you want to see the videos first, that's the best place to see them. And so then it's easier for me to reach out with you. You could comment on shows and things like that. Law Subscribed on every single podcast app, and even ones you've maybe never heard of. And then the law firm is subscriptionattorney.com. I have one more question for you, though, before we wrap up here. A question I like to ask everyone I have on my podcast, and that is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Oh my gosh, I love that question because it's so random and unrelated. I would not call a hot dog a sandwich because there's like one bun.
So what? So
It's
that
not
means
sandwiched.
you need two buns. What if you put a hot dog in between two buns? Does that make it a sandwich, or you split the bun so it's two pieces?
I think in order for a hot dog to be a sandwich, you would have to cut it in half, cut those in half, strategically align them on a piece of bread, and put another piece of bread on top of it. That is a hot dog sandwich.
Okay, all right. I think that's the third time in almost 100 episodes that's been the answer.
See, we're onto something here.
Thanks so much again for coming on my show and having me on yours.
Yes, thank you.
So,
Oh, that would be great. That would
yeah,
be
some
great.
sort of collaboration. I think I'm very open to finding a way to make that work. Well, with that, Corinne, I just want to ask you the last question I ask all my guests, which is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
I just saw something on this the other day. I think it was one of our faculty candidates. So sorry, but I just saw it. And so it depends on what the rules are, what the definitions are, right? It's bread, it's meat.
Spoken like a law professor.
I know. So it all depends.
Well, okay. Well, we've definitely got
It's
a
a
version.
great law professor answer. It depends.
Okay, and I'll grant you that caveat. What is your instinct on the answer to that question?
My instinct is no.
Why?
The shape, I think. But then subs are shaped the same way. So I don't know. I will take it back. Yes, I'm going to say hot dog is a sandwich.
Okay. There you go. Well, with that,
It would be humorous to receive checks that say green card guys or something like that. That are the traditional law firm name.
so with this fun divergence, I'll ask the last question I asked all my guests, which is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Ooh. Well, if you define a sandwich as putting something between bread, I guess, then yeah, I guess it could be defined. A hot dog could be considered a sandwich. And you're putting condiments on it, radish, whatever you like.
Pickle, some grilled onions. I'm getting hungry. It's almost
I can see
lunchtime
why
here.
you might ask this question since you're in Chicago. That was like a thing, right? Deep dish.
Yeah, right. I just thought it's interesting to see how people answer. We could keep talking forever. I'm going to start wrapping up the interview.
Okay.
We'll just have to have you back. But I do want to end with a question I like to ask all my guests, which is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
These days, well, first of all, I don't eat red meat, so this is like an interesting question for me. So it's not a sandwich to me because it's not on something I would even consider. This is the sort of thing where this is like a good test question for generative AI. It's like if you ask it like, is it a sandwich and why, or why is it not, would actually be kind of an interesting experiment. But I've always traditionally thought of it as being a sandwich. So
I don't think it's its own category. Hot dogs, hamburgers, they go together.
Yeah. Okay. Great. We'll accept it. And I'll tell you, on the date of recording. So if the really dedicated listeners want to figure out when we recorded, episode 59 went live with Paxton AI. And funny enough, what they did post interview is they put it into their tool. Is a hot dog a sandwich? So not just generative AI, but from a legal perspective. And they put like what, according to New York law, is a hot dog a sandwich or not? And that is, so go to episode 59, and in the show notes, there's a link to that blog post where they show Paxton's legal analysis on is a hot dog a sandwich in certain jurisdictions. It's really great.
That's a great law student thing where you go to help them realize about regulations, where you go like, okay, so what is something milk or not? Like why can't they say almond milk? Why does it have to be almond beverage product? Kind of thing.
Right. Like I've been asking this question for a lot, for years to my guests, and I've never thought that there is an actual legal answer, right, to that question. Isn't that something?
And it will vary from state to state, I'm sure.
And the answer varies. It depends is the ultimate. But I don't let people get away with it. Depends on the show. But yeah, I mean that is.
And there's probably this fascinating history of like why the law got enacted and who it was protecting and who they were trying to keep out of the market.
Right. Big Sausage wanted to make sure it was, something like that, right? Or a brat isn't a hot dog, so one is a sandwich, one isn't. I don't know. Anyway,
Or the variant on that, which also people struggle over, is like, why do hot dog buns come in packages of 10 and hamburger buns come in packages of 8? So that will give your audience something to think about.
Why have we been paying this guy? He's not doing anything. And then they cut you off completely. Rather call them proactively and say, hey, it doesn't look like you're using them that much service. I think we should drop your price down. I still think there's a lot of value that I can add here. Let's see if this works.
Yeah. So the last question I'm going to ask you is a question I ask all my guests and why people stick around to the end of the show. And that is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
Oh, it's a hot dog a sandwich. I don't eat hot dogs, but yeah, I believe it is a sandwich.
Why?
It is meat within 2 pieces of bread. Accordingly, it's a sandwich to me, and you can put condiments on it and other stuff.
Okay, all right. And did you say you're in Philadelphia or where are you?
Yeah, I'm in the Philly area.
You're in the Philly area. So is a Philly cheesesteak a sandwich?
100%.
Okay. You said that so confidently. I don't need an explanation as to why.
That's right.
Well, I think I would be remiss if I did a short little promo for my book. Please check it out on Amazon. It's highly accessible and non-technical. And seriously, if you have any questions about legal tech, please follow me on LinkedIn, follow me on X, or connect with me either on LinkedIn or through my website, ColinSlevy.com.
Fantastic. Great. And with that, Colin, is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
Well, the way you phrased that question, it seems like you're leaning towards a certain answer. I would say that a hot dog is a sandwich because the way I look at a sandwich is you got something between a piece of bread, either 2 slices or 1 piece of bread. And a hot dog, you got hot dog in bread and you eat it as a sandwich. So, you're not like slicing it up or whatever. So yes, it is a sandwich.
All right. Very confident answer. We don't always get those on this show. So that's great. I love it. Well, Colin, thanks again for coming on the podcast. Law Subscribed.
Thanks so much.
There's a big community of people who are not only saying that it's possible for every area of law, every lawyer, but they're doing it in every area of law and just being more and more creative. So get curious.
Great. We'll end the formal interview there. My last question for you, Bo. The reason why everyone sticks through to the end of the episode, is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
There's no way it's a sandwich. But I don't have a why. I've just never.
Come on, bring it.
Why is it not a sandwich?
Thinking on your feet skills. Let's do it.
It's not bread. It's a bun. It's not a sandwich the same way a hamburger is not a sandwich.
You have a kid, so you'll understand this. When my kid was like 2 and a few months, she was a very early talker. She's tiny, but she was an early talker. I was grilling burgers and I was plating them. I was going back and forth from the grill to inside on the plates. And my daughter says to me, like when everyone else was plated and I had not quite sat down yet, she goes, "Daddy, eat your sandwich," pointing at the hamburger. So I'm just saying, a hamburger does look more like a sandwich. You'll grant me that, right?
I'll give you that for sure. Now, I guess the qualifier, when I was a kid, we didn't always have buns. So sometimes you used a piece of bread to wrap a hot dog. Unless that piece of bread breaks in two or you're using two pieces of bread, still not a sandwich.
Okay, well,
I may consider two pieces of bread with hot dogs in the middle a hot dog sandwich.
Okay, you're the second person who's actually said that in like 80 something interviews.
I really want people to understand that anyone can be a rainmaker. Any lawyer, do not believe it when someone tells you BD isn't for everyone, or some lawyers just want to get on and do the work. Any lawyer can do it. And that's why we developed the BD Breakthrough Blueprint, because it shows that anyone can do it. Nothing in there is complicated. Nothing in there. Anything that you learn, you can get on with day one. And that's the key to it. And the most important thing for me is that lawyers understand that anyone can be a rainmaker.
Stick around for a second when we sign off, and I'll tell you how to make it easier for you to post on TikTok. But the last question that I have for you is the reason why all my listeners stay through to the end of the show, Scott, and that is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Oh, do you know what? I've heard this question asked and answered so many times on your podcast. Okay. And I love every single answer, but no, it's not. It's not, because it's a roll, and a sandwich is two slices of bread. And even in preparation for this, I checked in one of the English dictionaries, and it does not refer to a roll as being considered a sandwich. And I think going back again, I think it was Alistair who said to you sandwiches were invented in the UK. So but for me, and I do love a hot dog, but I've never looked at a hot dog and thought, yeah, that's a nice sandwich.
Though it does make me wonder now if in the Earl of Sandwich's time, did they have sliced bread, or was everything on a roll?
That's a good question, Matthew. I'm going to have to go and look that up.
These are the questions of our day. I think you could leverage a de minimis subscription in that sort of circumstance. But with that, let me ask you the last question I ask all my guests, and that is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
A hot dog is a sandwich. It's got two sides. I heard one of your guests before talk about the fact that it's not a sandwich because the hot dog is actually attached. The buns are actually attached to each other. I've had way too many situations in my life where that bun is no longer attached. And so I'm going to go with the sandwich, two pieces of bread, something in the middle, and it's just a different form.
All right. Sounds good. If I'm a personal injury attorney, I'm thinking like, I got to speed up every single freaking process. And maybe a tool like Screens, while it wasn't originally designed for that, it might end up doing a pretty good job at something like that.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. So anyway, I want to ask you the last question I like to ask all my guests, Otto, and that is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Interesting. Wow.
And a screen coming soon to answer this question.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with yes. Meat in between two pieces of bread kind of fits the bill in my book. Yeah, I'm not a real deep thinker on the sandwich front, admittedly. This is not something I spend a lot of time thinking about, but it is a fascinating question, Matthew. And now I'm really excited to go listen to more of your podcast episodes just to hear how other folks have litigated this, really interesting question.
This is why. This is how I keep the listeners tuned in to the very end. And Ryan, send your future students to legalextern.com, because maybe they could extern with me if you're teaching them AI stuff. That would be helpful.
Awesome.
We'll get. I want to ask you a fun question, then we'll do a little bit more about Best Era and how people can get in touch and what you're doing to specifically help them there. But the fun question is, Ryan, is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
No, it is not a sandwich. I don't really have a good explanation why, but
What's your gut? What's your gut?
My gut is a hot dog's a hot dog. A sandwich is a sandwich. Like, a sandwich is something that has meat that is thin and flat. A hot dog is not thin and flat. So if pressed, I guess that's where I would make
the distinction. The same way I would say, though, like a lobster roll is not a sandwich. So a sandwich, I think, really encompasses bread on top and bread on the bottom.
Okay. All right.
I think you could cut a hot dog and put it in a sandwich and make a hot dog sandwich, but we'd call that bologna, right?
All right. All right. Very good. Very good. That might have been the fourth time in 100-something interviews that somebody's actually like categorized putting a hot dog on two pieces of bread.
The more powerful we become. And whether you're a woman, whether you're a person of color, or whether you're both, you face those challenges, you face those puzzles constantly on a daily basis, whether you even know that you're facing them or not, right? So you succeed, and the more you succeed, the smarter, the more powerful, the more capable you become, and then you just want to keep doing more.
Well, that's great. I don't think we're gonna top that for the rest of this interview. So we'll wrap up even a touch early with my question I'd like to ask all my guests, what keeps my listeners around to the end of the show, and that is, Eve, is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
No, a hot dog is a hot dog. Because I don't think a sandwich has to be 2 slices of bread with some filler in between. And I think that a sandwich can be a number of different items, but a hot dog has always been a hot dog. It is one piece of a bun, right? And they're typically connected. But what's in between the folds of that bun is, you can't compare it to anything else. A hot dog is a hot dog is a hot dog, but a sandwich can be anything.
All right, good. So it's a really powerful thing. So then I'll just ask you the last question I asked all my guests, and that is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Oh my goodness, that is one of my favorite questions. Actually, part of my PhD included that.
Well then, let's hear it.
To me, I think it depends on which linguistic theory you subscribe to. So is it compositional or is it kind of prototype? And for me, I'm more of the prototype side as opposed to composition, because I think it's infinitely regressive to do that. And so I'd say no, a hot dog is not a sandwich.
Okay, I think there was reasoning in there, but we might not have enough time to go into it now.
I will
Okay.
say, so prototype is kind of like, if you imagine a bird, you don't immediately think of a penguin, you think of a robin. But if it's compositional theory, then you think about the parts that make up a thing.
And there's an
So
infinite amount
for-
of parts, down to string theory, down to quantum physics, down to whatever. So
Exactly.
that's why it's regressive. Okay.
Yes.
That makes
So
a lot of
that's why I
sense.
subscribe to prototype theory.
I think I probably do too, although it's fun to go down that other rabbit hole.